Let me ask you something real. When was the last time you looked in the mirror and asked yourself, why do I keep letting them treat me like this? Not out of weakness, but out of fear, out of habit, out of silence. See, people don't just decide who you are. You show them, you teach them, you train them by what you tolerate. And the truth, the raw, honest, gut-punching truth, people will only rise to the standard you set, or they'll sink to the one you allow. You weren't born to be stepped on. You weren't put on this earth to be a placeholder in someone else's story. You're the main character in your life. But if you keep saying yes when your soul is screaming no, if you keep letting people borrow your heart without paying it back in respect, you're not just losing relationships, you're losing yourself. It's time to change that. Right now. It's time to draw the line, not in anger, but in power, in self-respect, in knowing who you are and what you deserve. Because the moment you stop accepting less is the moment they start giving more. You've got to understand something. People are watching you, even when you think they're not. They're reading how you react when they push your limits. They're testing the waters, seeing how far they can go, how loud they can speak, how much of you they can take without permission. And if you keep letting them inch across your soul, if you keep staying quiet while your spirit screams, they're not going to stop. Because people don't stop at the edge of your pain. They stop at the edge of your boundary. That's why your power is in the line you draw, not the pain you carry. But let me tell you this. It's not about building a wall out of anger. It's about building a door with a lock. Boundaries aren't about shutting the world out. They're about deciding who has the key. So don't confuse being nice with being open for abuse. You're not obligated to be available for disrespect. You're not required to let people treat you like an afterthought just because you once loved them. There comes a time when your peace has to matter more than pleasing everybody who has no intention of respecting your soul. Now, don't get it twisted. Setting boundaries doesn't mean being bitter. It doesn't mean walking around with your fist clenched and your heart guarded by barbed wire. It means knowing what you will and won't accept and communicating that with strength and calm. Bitterness is loud, reactive, always looking to hurt back. But boundaries are calm. Boundaries are quiet. Boundaries are the confidence to say, this is where I end, and you do not get to step further. Because see, bitterness comes from wounds that never heal, but boundaries come from wisdom. You learn them through experience, through heartbreak, through silence that echoed too long and apologies that never came. And when you finally get tired of shrinking yourself to keep the peace, you start to realize the peace you were trying to keep wasn't real to begin with. That's the shift. That's when you stop trying to control how people feel about your no and start standing behind it with boldness. You don't need to justify your boundary. You don't owe anybody a reason for protecting your peace. If they truly care about you, they'll respect it. If they don't, let them go. The door swings both ways. The hardest part about setting boundaries is the guilt, especially if you're someone with a soft heart, someone who's always given more than they received. Saying no feels like you're turning your back on love. But the truth is, you're not rejecting love. You're rejecting behavior that disguises itself as love but steals your joy. And if it costs you your self-respect, it's too expensive. Period. You've got to ask yourself, what have you been accepting in the name of not losing someone? Because if keeping them requires losing yourself, it's not a relationship, it's a sacrifice. And that ain't love. That's emotional debt. You deserve better than that. You deserve relationships that honor your humanity. People who don't just tolerate your boundaries, but celebrate them. Because when someone really sees you, they'll want to protect the parts of you that have been hurt before. And anyone who gets angry because you spoke up, anyone who vanishes because you set a standard, that's proof they were only there for the version of you that kept quiet, not the real you. So be real now, because the fake peace of silence never lasts. Speak up for you. You see, people will say, you've changed. They'll say you're cold now, that you're distant. But what they really mean is you're not as easy to manipulate anymore. You're not bending backwards for folks who wouldn't even lean forward for you. And when you start setting those lines, when you stop picking up every call, replying to every text, showing up every time they snap their fingers, they feel the shift and it threatens them. Because you've taken your power back. You've taken your time, your space, your energy, and placed it under lock and key. Not to isolate yourself, but to protect yourself. You're not bitter. You're just done bleeding for people who won't even hand you a bandage. You're not rude. You're just tired of being the only one giving. And you finally realize if someone truly wants a place in your life, they'll prove it with consistency, not with empty promises and late night apologies. So when they tell you you've changed, Say thank you. Say it with pride. Because the version of you that let them walk all over your boundaries, that version needed to evolve. And this new you, this is growth. This is healing. This is self-love in action. When you learn the power of a boundary, your life starts to clean itself up. People begin to fall off, not because you chase them out, but because the environment you're creating no longer feeds their chaos. Some folks only love you when you're tired, when you're weak, when you say yes out of fear and okay just to keep things smooth. But you've got to understand, the ones who stay when you start saying no, those are your people. Those are the ones who value you, not just your availability. And that's the point of boundaries. They're not punishment. They're protection. You're not trying to make people feel bad. You're just building a life that doesn't allow confusion, disrespect, or manipulation to live rent-free. You're not bitter. You're better. Better at protecting your time. Better at walking away. Better at staying firm when people test your limits. And once you start living in that space, the peace you feel is unshakable. You sleep better. You breathe deeper. Because you're finally giving yourself the same grace you used to hand out to everybody else. And that right there, that's growth nobody can take from you. Now here's where the power really kicks in. When you stop apologizing for putting yourself first. Because the world taught you to be selfless, but it forgot to tell you that selfless people often forget themselves completely. And that's not noble. That's dangerous. You cannot pour into others from an empty vessel. You cannot heal people while bleeding out in silence. You've got to check in with yourself. Ask yourself, what are you allowing that's draining your spirit? And what are you scared to lose that's costing you your sanity? Because peace isn't passive. It's a choice. A choice to walk away from loud chaos. A choice to unplug from disrespect. A choice to say, you don't get to treat me like this and still have access to me. That choice, that's your boundary. And yes, it might make people uncomfortable, but you weren't put on this earth to be everyone's comfort zone. You were put here to live fully, loudly, and truthfully. So protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. And when they say you're selfish, remind them, it's not selfish to stop setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. And listen, sometimes you'll set the boundary and they'll test it anyway. They'll smile while they cross the line. They'll pretend they didn't hear you. They'll act like your no was optional. That's when you've got to show them with action, not just words. Because words don't mean much without consistency. If you say, I won't accept disrespect, and then let it slide when it shows up in disguise, you're training them to keep doing it. But if you follow through, if you walk away when the line is crossed, if you withhold your presence until your peace is honored, they'll learn. People remember what cost them access. And sometimes the only way to teach someone your value is to remove yourself from the equation. Don't argue, don't beg, don't try to explain the same thing 100 times. Some lessons don't come through lectures, they come through absence. Your absence is your proof that your boundary isn't just a suggestion, it's a standard. And you deserve to be surrounded by people who don't need to be warned twice to treat you right. I'm telling you. When you start respecting yourself, everything shifts. The room you walk into feels different. The energy you bring is grounded. People notice. They may not always say it, but they feel it. You don't even have to be loud about your boundaries. They'll feel them in your silence. They'll notice when your energy doesn't flinch at their drama, when your eyes don't light up just because they came back after ghosting you. That's strength. That's power. That's maturity. And you don't have to explain it. Growth doesn't require a press release. It just requires consistency. So stop over-explaining why you're not available like you used to be. Stop apologizing for taking care of yourself. You've done enough for others. Now it's time to do for you. The people who really love you will adjust. The ones who were just using you, they'll walk away. And that's okay. Because you're no longer living in fear of losing people. You're living in purpose, in peace, in clarity. That's what boundaries give you. A life that feels safe inside your own skin. You are allowed to evolve. You are allowed to say, I've had enough. You are allowed to unlearn the lie that says love means enduring mistreatment. Real love respects the lines you draw. It doesn't guilt you into silence. It doesn't twist your compassion into obligation. So step into your power. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with clarity, with authority, with the quiet understanding that your life matters. Your voice matters. And your limits are not up for debate. You don't have to harden your heart, just protect it. You don't have to become cold. Just stop being easily accessed by people who don't value your warmth. This is about self-preservation, about emotional maturity, about waking up one day and saying, I deserve better and I will not settle for less. And when you live that truth out loud, not only do you teach people how to treat you, you teach yourself how to never betray your own soul again. There comes a time in your life when you got to look in the mirror and ask yourself, do I really respect the person staring back at me? Not the image you show the world, not the smile you put on for social media, but the raw, unfiltered version of you. Because see, that's where everything begins. That's where the foundation is built. People don't just randomly disrespect you. They take cues from how you treat yourself. If you walk like you don't matter, if you talk like you don't deserve more, if you keep letting the world dim your light just so others can shine, you're sending a signal, a silent message that says, I'll accept whatever you give me, but you weren't made to settle. You weren't born to be invisible. You've got to wake up and own your worth before anyone else can recognize it. You teach the world how to treat you by the way you carry your spirit. And self-respect, that's not about arrogance. That's about knowing your value so deeply that you stop auditioning for roles in other people's lives where you don't belong. Because once you respect yourself, you stop begging others to. When you respect yourself, your standards change. Your circle gets smaller. Your conversations get deeper. Your boundaries get stronger. You stop chasing validation and start attracting real connection. You stop explaining your worth and start living it. And that shift, that's when things begin to transform, because people can feel it. They can feel when you are no longer tolerating the bare minimum. They can sense when you've outgrown the games, the breadcrumbs, the constant apologizing for simply existing. And it doesn't mean you become hard or bitter. It means you become clear. Clear about what you want. Clear about what you will and won't accept. Clear about what your soul needs to stay peaceful. But here's the truth. It starts with you. It starts with how you speak to yourself in silence. How you show up for yourself when nobody else claps for you. It's about doing the hard things even when no one's watching, especially when no one's watching. Because the world can't give you what you haven't first given yourself. You want respect, then treat yourself like someone worthy of it. Feed your mind. Protect your heart. Invest in your growth. That's the kind of energy that commands respect without ever raising your voice. You've got to stop waiting for other people to wake up and see your value. That's too heavy a burden to place on others, especially when most of them are blind to their own worth. If you don't walk into the room believing you belong, someone else will convince you that you don't. And if you keep looking for your reflection in broken mirrors, you'll always think you're less than. Self-respect means no longer needing approval to validate your existence. You don't need someone to choose you to prove you're enough. You were already chosen the day you took your first breath. So stop shrinking to fit in spaces that were never built for you. Stop lowering your voice just to make others comfortable. You were not put on this earth to play small. You've got greatness in you. But that greatness can only rise when your self-worth rises with it. So take your power back, not by force, but by remembering who you are. By standing tall when the world tries to make you doubt your place in it. You don't need to compete for respect. Just carry yourself like it's non-negotiable. The moment you start respecting yourself, you stop overextending. You stop saying yes when your heart is screaming no. You stop showing up for people who wouldn't even think to ask if you're okay. And that doesn't make you selfish, it makes you wise. Because constantly giving without receiving isn't generosity, it's emotional bankruptcy. You've got to protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. If you keep pouring into people who only take, you'll wake up one day empty, bitter, and wondering where you lost yourself. But self-respect means listening when your soul says, I'm tired. It means walking away from conversations that no longer nourish you. It means removing yourself from tables where love is conditional and presence is taken for granted. And yes, it will be lonely sometimes, but lonely is better than being surrounded by people who make you feel alone. So give yourself the respect of rest, the respect of peace, the respect of boundaries. That's how you grow. That's how you become unshakable. Not because life gets easier, but because you become stronger in how you respond to it. There are people out there who will only respect you when you respect yourself enough to stop tolerating their disrespect. It's not your job to fix them, it's your job to honor you. And sometimes that means walking away without closure, without revenge, without drama, just a silent, sacred exit that says, I choose me now. Because self-respect means no longer settling for one-sided love, fake friendships, or temporary comfort that leaves permanent scars. You deserve more. But you can't receive more until you believe you're worthy of it. So stop negotiating your worth just to be liked. Stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Your energy is precious. Your time is limited. Don't waste it trying to be enough for people who don't even know what enough looks like. The moment you decide you are enough, without additions or conditions, you begin attracting people who match your frequency. People who speak your soul's language. People who see you, not just use you. And it all starts with that one decision to stop begging for the bare minimum and start requiring the absolute best. You know what self-respect also looks like? Healing. Not for them, but for you. Because bitterness is a prison, and when you carry resentment, it eats you alive, one memory at a time. But when you respect yourself, you choose to let go, not because they deserve forgiveness, but because you deserve freedom. You refuse to let pain define your future. You refuse to let the past keep repeating through your habits. Healing is the highest form of self-respect, because it means you care enough about your future to stop rehearsing your old wounds. It means you wake up every day and say, I won't let what broke me keep controlling me. That's powerful. That's brave. That's love. Real love for yourself. And when that love grows, it radiates. People can feel it in how you carry yourself. In your eyes. In your voice. You don't need revenge. You don't need to be loud. Your healing is your proof. Your peace is your revenge. Your glow is your answer. That's what happens when you respect yourself. You become untouchable in spirit, unshakable in purpose. Some of y'all are too loyal to people who are disloyal to your peace. And the reason is simple. You don't see how valuable you are without them. That's the lie self-respect destroys. When you start respecting yourself, you realize you don't need to keep people in your life out of fear of being alone. You realize your presence is the blessing, not the other way around. You realize that walking away isn't when you stop trying to prove your worth to people who should have seen it from day one, because begging to be respected is beneath you. If someone can't honor your truth, they're not meant to stay in your story. Let them go. Release them with grace. And focus on building a life where your own voice is the loudest one cheering you on. Where your own reflection reminds you of your strength. That's what self-respect builds. A home inside your own soul. A foundation no one can shake. A love that doesn't crumble when someone else walks away. You are enough. Believe that, and everything changes. You have to stop looking for external confirmation of an internal truth. Respect doesn't start when someone finally acknowledges you. It starts when you acknowledge yourself. It starts when you stop betraying your gut just to keep someone comfortable. When you stop saying yes to things that deplete you. When you stop pretending to be less so others can feel like more. Self-respect is saying, I matter too, even when nobody else is saying it for you. It's choosing yourself in rooms that never chose you back. And that takes courage. That takes clarity. But most of all, it takes faith. Faith that you're enough as you are. That you're worthy of better. That you don't have to earn the right to be treated with dignity. Because once you truly respect yourself, you'll never again entertain what doesn't. You won't argue for your worth. You won't settle for convenience. You'll walk away, not out of anger, but out of love for yourself. And that walk, that's where the real power begins. Respect isn't something you demand with your voice. It's something you communicate with your presence. When you walk into a room with peace, confidence, and clarity, people feel it before you speak. When you carry yourself with intention, when you refuse to engage in gossip, drama, or dysfunction, people adjust. They know what you're about. You don't have to convince anyone. You don't have to prove anything. Just be solid, be consistent, be true to yourself, even when the world tries to mold you into something you're not. That's self-respect in action. It's how you stand tall in a storm. How you love yourself even when life disappoints you. It's not perfection, it's presence. It's not pride, it's purpose. So keep building that relationship with yourself. Feed your mind, protect your heart, sharpen your spirit. Hold on to your inner peace in your heart. Because the most powerful thing you can ever do in this life is respect yourself so deeply that the world learns to do the same without you ever saying a word. There comes a moment in your life when you have to stop explaining yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. A moment when you realize your worth isn't up for debate. Not everyone will see you clearly, and that's okay. Some people have fog in their eyes and ego in their ears. No matter how much you give, no matter how kind you are, no matter how loud you speak your truth, they'll twist it to fit their comfort zone. So stop shrinking yourself just to be accepted. Stop watering yourself down just so people who can't handle your full presence can sip you comfortably. You don't owe anyone an explanation for why you are who you are. Your value doesn't need a PowerPoint presentation. You're not here to convince, you're here to live. And live boldly. You're not on trial, you're not auditioning. You're not standing before a panel waiting for applause. You are already enough, and if they can't see it, it's not your job to help them focus. Because the people who are meant for you will never need subtitles to understand your soul. When you constantly feel the need to explain your worth, it means you're surrounded by the wrong people. People who benefit from your doubt. People who feed off your insecurity. People who need you to believe you're not enough so they can feel like they are. But the moment you realize your worth is not something to defend, your life changes. Because self-worth is not a courtroom argument. It's a quiet knowing, a presence, a power. You walk into a room with your head held high, not because you're better than anyone, but because you're no longer playing small to make them feel big. You don't justify your standards. You don't over-explain your no. You don't apologize for prioritizing your peace. You just move with clarity. You move with conviction. And in that energy, everything that isn't aligned will fall away, and let it fall. Because what's real won't flinch. What's meant won't require you to twist your truth into something palatable. You don't have to fight to be understood when you already understand yourself. You ever notice how the more you explain yourself, the less they listen? Because they weren't trying to understand you. They were trying to control you. Trying to pull you into their narrative, trying to make you doubt your own intuition. And that's why you have to stop arguing your value to people who profit from your silence. You're not hard to love. You're just no longer tolerating half love, conditional love, performance-based love. You're not difficult. You've just grown too deep for shallow waters. And the moment you stop defending your light to those who live in darkness is the moment you truly begin to shine, not out of spite, but out of alignment. Because explaining your worth is exhausting. It pulls you out of your power. It makes you seek permission to be what you already are. You don't need to campaign for respect. You just need to embody it. Let your walk speak. Let your boundaries speak. Let your peace speak. Because when you know your worth, you don't chase clarity. You are the clarity. And people will either meet you at that level or remove themselves. People will try to make you think you're too much, too loud, too bold, too intense, too passionate, because your presence triggers what they've buried. But their discomfort is not your burden. Their confusion is not your assignment. Stop explaining why you dream big. Stop justifying why you require honesty. Stop defending why you won't settle for breadcrumbs. Because your worth isn't rooted in their capacity to receive you. It's rooted in your capacity to love yourself enough to not stay where you are dismissed. You don't owe your heart to those who treat it like a convenience. You don't owe your vision to those who lack sight. And you sure don't owe your energy to those who drain it without reciprocation. You have the right to walk away, the right to evolve, the right to say this version of me is no longer compatible with this environment. And you don't have to explain that to anyone. Not out of arrogance, but out of self-honoring. Because the moment you stop negotiating your worth is the moment you start living in your purpose. There are people in this world who will only value you when they can benefit from you. But the second you say, I'm not explaining myself anymore, they get uncomfortable. Why? Because they lose control. They can no longer guilt trip you, gaslight you, or play on your insecurities. And when you stop explaining your worth, you reclaim your voice. You reclaim your time. You reclaim your soul. Proving that's peace. That's freedom. You don't need to be understood by everyone. Not everyone has the depth to meet you where you are. And that's not your loss, it's theirs. Stop putting energy into proving yourself and start investing that energy into becoming the best version of yourself. Grow in silence, heal in private, and show up so strong that people feel your worth without you saying a single word. Because when you walk in truth, the right people recognize you and the wrong ones disqualify themselves. And both are blessings. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be real. And real don't need permission. Real don't need applause. Real just shows up and keeps moving. Stop explaining why you raised your standards, why you no longer tolerate disrespect, why you cut off people who kept cutting into your peace. That's not pettiness. That's progress. You've outgrown what no longer honors you, and that's something to be proud of. Your growth is not an apology, it's a declaration. And anyone who makes you feel bad for choosing yourself is not aligned with your destiny. You are not responsible for making others comfortable with your boundaries. If they feel offended because you stopped overextending, that's their ego talking, not your conscience. Stand firm. You don't owe access to those who abuse the privilege. You don't have to sit at tables where your presence is only tolerated, not celebrated. Go where you're seen. Go where your name feels safe in someone's mouth. Go where love feels like freedom, not a transaction. And in that space, you'll find peace. But it begins with this. No more explaining your worth to people who benefit from you forgetting it. Let them go. Let them wonder. Let your life be the answer. You were not born to convince people of your greatness. You were born to live it. And when you stop explaining your worth, you move differently. You walk with stillness. You speak with purpose. You give without losing yourself. and you love without lowering your value. Because begging for respect is beneath you. Chasing approval is beneath you. You don't need a consensus to validate your truth. You just need courage to stand in it. And that's where the transformation happens. When you stop explaining and start embodying. When you stop reacting and start discerning. When you stop pleasing and start leading. You weren't made to blend in. You weren't made to be understood by those who lack the capacity. You were made to rise, to shake atmospheres, to elevate rooms simply by being all of who you are. Don't let small minds question your purpose. Don't let shallow souls shrink your depth. You are not too much. You are exactly what the right people have been praying for. So move like it, live like it, and don't say a word. Let your life do the talking. There's a quiet power that comes when you know who you are and refuse to explain it. You stop entering rooms trying to be liked and start walking in like you belong, because you do. You stop compromising your values just to keep someone around. You stop bending over backward for folks who wouldn't even lean forward for you, and the world adjusts. Slowly but surely, the energy around you changes, because self-worth is magnetic. It repels what is fake and attracts what is real. It clears out the clutter and creates space for purpose. You no longer chase people. You no longer chase love. You no longer chase respect. You attract it by being true to yourself. And that truth, it don't need dressing up. It don't need performance. It don't need a sales pitch. It just needs you to trust it, live it, and honor it, because when you stop explaining your worth, you finally start living like you believe in it. And that's when you become unstoppable. The need to explain your worth comes from a wound that says, I won't be enough unless they see me. But let me tell you something. They don't need to see you for you to be powerful. They don't need to understand your path for you to walk it. You don't need witnesses to validate your transformation. The most important person that needs to recognize your worth is you. And once you do, once you really do, you start moving with purpose, not permission. You start acting like someone who knows what they bring to the table, even if you have to build your own damn table. Your silence becomes louder than any explanation. Your boundaries become louder than any debate. Your presence becomes louder than any argument. Because truth doesn't need backup, it just needs belief. So hold your head high, speak less, move smarter, and let every step you take be a reminder to the world. My worth is not up for discussion. It's not up for discounts. It's not a negotiation. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Not because you're weak. Not because you don't have the words, but because you've outgrown the need to prove anything to anyone. When someone disrespects you, they want a reaction. They want your energy. They want your peace. Don't give it to them. Let your silence be the reminder that you no longer argue with people who don't operate on your level. Silence is not surrender, it's strategy, it's self-respect, it's emotional intelligence. Because anyone can yell, anyone can clap back, but not everyone has the strength to rise above. Your silence is not void, it's full of meaning. It says, I see your behavior and I choose not to match it. It says, I value myself too much to wrestle with disrespect. And that right there is power. You don't have to react to everything. You don't have to explain your dignity to someone who's already chosen to disregard it. Let them talk. Let them twist your name. Let them gossip and speculate. Your silence will echo louder than their noise. Because what you tolerate teaches others how to treat you. And your silence is saying, this is beneath me. There is a kind of silence that commands respect. A silence that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, and doesn't justify. That's the kind of silence you develop when you've walked through enough pain to know not everything needs your voice. See, you don't need to defend yourself to small minds with loud mouths. You don't have to lower your frequency to be heard by people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Silence is you saying you no longer have access to the part of me that explains, fixes, or entertains your chaos. And it burns them. Because people expect the old version of you, the one who used to overextend, overtalk, and overgive. But now, you've grown. You've mastered the art of letting people feel the absence of your energy. Let them wonder why you're quiet. Let them feel the void where your attention used to be. Disrespect doesn't need revenge. It needs distance. It needs elevation. And when you stop talking, you start teaching. You teach them that your peace is priceless. You teach them that your boundaries are not suggestions. And you teach them that your silence is a language they can't manipulate. You don't have to clap back to clap for yourself. Every time someone throws shade, they're trying to pull you into their storm. But you're not obligated to step into chaos just to prove you're calm. Your silence is a shield. It protects your power. It holds your dignity. And when someone shows you disrespect, you don't need to light a fire. You just need to stop feeding theirs. You don't explain your standards to someone who refuses to respect them. You don't argue with someone who's already chosen dishonor. You walk away, and that walk, that silence, it screams self-respect. Because you teach people how to treat you by what you don't allow. And if they can't handle your silence, it's because they've gotten too used to your noise, too used to you showing up for battles that didn't deserve your presence, but not anymore. You're not explaining, not engaging, not proving. You're just being. You're letting your absence be louder than your presence ever was. And that right there is how you reclaim your power. With silence, with stillness, with grace. There's a maturity in silence that words can't reach. A strength that doesn't need to shout. When you stay silent in the face of disrespect, you're not letting them win. You're rising above the game. Because responding to disrespect validates it. It brings it into your world. It says you are important enough to disturb my peace. But they're not. You choosing silence is not passivity, it's clarity. You know who you are. You know what you bring. You know what you deserve. And when someone treats you with less, you don't stoop down to meet them. You step back and rise higher. That kind of silence, it makes people uncomfortable. It confronts them with themselves. It forces them to sit with the weight of what they've done without the distraction of your reaction. That's where the power is. Not in shouting, not in retaliation, but in detachment. In removing yourself so fully that they can feel the loss of your presence without you ever saying a word. That silence becomes your boundary, your armor, your authority. Let them underestimate you. Let them believe your silence is weakness. Because what they don't realize is that your silence is a decision to preserve your energy, a decision to no longer educate the ungrateful, a decision to protect your mental space. You've spent too many years explaining yourself to people who never intended to understand you. Now you move different. Now you let your peace speak. Because real strength doesn't look like control, it looks like release. And when you stop responding to disrespect, you send a message that screams louder than any argument. I don't move where I'm not respected. That silence, it changes dynamics. It exposes the intentions of those around you. It makes people realize the weight of your energy once it's gone. And while they scramble to decode your stillness, you've already moved on. Elevated, grown, healed. You're not stuck trying to fix what you didn't break. You're not stuck replaying wounds they left behind. You're in your lane, minding your peace, and letting your quiet speak volumes. Silence teaches lessons words can't. When someone crosses your boundary and you go quiet, they feel it. They notice the shift. They feel the cold air where warmth used to be. You don't have to scream to be heard. You just have to stop showing up for people who keep taking you for granted. Your silence becomes the mirror they can't look away from. It forces them to see their own behavior reflected back at them. And that's what unsettles them. Because while they expected drama, you gave them distance. While they expected explanation, you gave them exit. While they expected retaliation, you gave them release. That kind of silence is discipline. And it's hard-earned. It comes from years of chaos you finally outgrown, from battles you finally decided not to fight, from wounds you finally decided to let heal. You no longer need closure. You don't need validation. You don't need them to acknowledge what they did. You found peace in simply walking away. And that silence, that's your freedom. People won't always value your silence at first. They'll think it's pride or ego or stubbornness, but eventually they'll understand. It was wisdom. It was strength. It was protection. Because not everything deserves your reaction. Not everyone deserves your energy. And not every insult needs a reply. Sometimes the greatest show of self-control is letting the fire burn without throwing in another log. Let them talk. Let them poke. Let them try to provoke you. You stay still, stay grounded, stay centered. Your silence is not you giving up. It's you leveling up. You finally understood that your peace is not worth trading for someone else's chaos. That silence doesn't make you invisible, it makes you untouchable. Let them misread you. Let them call it cold. You know what it really is. Healing, growth, boundaries. And every time you choose silence over reaction, you teach yourself, I am no longer accepting